This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Eben Jansen. The show, of course, live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now with our whole show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. Today, we are back in the North Gauteng High Court as the Oscar Pistorius trial resumes, and there's been some exciting developments overnight. We look at the question of sustainability within the platinum sector here in South Africa, and then we'll get an update from the Eastern Cape, where the National Arts Festival kicks off a little bit later tonight. First, though, Courtroom Milan gives us a news update.
Well, good morning and welcome. I'm Courtroom Milan, and let's take a look at the news-making headlines this morning. Trade union NUMSA says workers will not be deterred from holding demonstrations outside Eskom's head offices in Sunninghill, Johannesburg today. This after Eskom obtained an interdict from the Labour Court in Johannesburg barring its workers who are NUMSA members from going on strike. NUMSA is demanding a 12% increase, among other things. Companies are offering between 7 and 8%. The state will continue with its cross-examination of Oscar Pistorius' longtime manager Piet van Zyl today. Yesterday, Advocate Gerrie Nel asked the North Gauteng High Court for an early adjournment to prepare for further questioning. The athlete's manager described Pistorius as a well-composed person under normal circumstances. Van Zyl also spoke of a loving Pistorius who will never ill-treat a woman, but his objectivity came under scrutiny when the state accused him of being sympathetic towards Pistorius. 3 leading South African National Defence Force officers have less than 24 hours in which to explain why they have not reinstated 4 soldiers dismissed 2 years ago or risk being arrested. This after the North Gauteng High Court found the 3 in contempt as they ignored an earlier order. 4 soldiers' contracts were terminated in 2012 despite there being 32 vacancies in the Defence Force at the time. President Jacob Zuma has granted IEC chairperson Pansy Tlakula a request for a special leave of absence. The presidency says Zuma has granted the special leave until a final decision on her fitness to hold office is made. The Electoral Court last month recommended that the National Assembly adopt its findings that Tlakula be removed from her post over the IEC head office lease deal. Then taking a look at your World Cup action, Belgium knocked the United States out of the World Cup with a 2-1 victory in extra time to set up a quarter-final meeting with Argentina. This after a 118th minute goal secured the Argentinians a 1-0 win in their World Cup last 16 game against Switzerland. Well, remember, all these top stories are available on our Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katrine. Now, the state is expected to continue its cross-examination of murder-accused Paralympian Oscar Pistorius agent Petrus van Zyl at the North Gauteng High Court today. State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel began his cross-examination yesterday but requested that the court adjourn early so that he could better prepare himself. Van Zyl testified that Pistorius had planned to take his girlfriend Ruva Steenkamp to 2 of his athletics meetings in Manchester and Brazil, which was the first time the athlete had asked a girlfriend to accompany him to sports meetings. Now, for the latest, let's cross to Griselda Lewis, who, as always, is standing by next to the courthouse. Good morning, Griselda.
Well, a very good morning to you, Eben.
Griselda, before we carry on with the expectations today, I understand that there's been some exciting developments overnight.
Well, certainly, Eben, developments that relate to Oscar Pistorius at the 2012 London Olympic Games, where he shared a room with his teammate Arno Fourie. And you did know yesterday inside court there were several questions that State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel had asked Oscar Pistorius' longtime manager, basically Piet van Zyl, when he asked him about an alleged incident that took place where Arno Fourie had asked to be removed from the room that he was sharing with Oscar Pistorius, and generally the insinuation was that Arno Fourie wanted to be removed for some reason, and some allegations that had surfaced was that Oscar Pistorius was constantly on the phone screaming at people, and that was the assumption as to why Arno Fourie wanted to be removed from the room that he was sharing with Oscar Pistorius. Now, overnight on his Twitter account, Arno Fourie issued a statement saying that he wanted to be removed from that room on the simple basis that he wanted to rest. He was saying that at the London Games, he wanted or in actual fact, he called his medical manager and asked his medical manager if the isolation room would be available 2 days before the final match, or the final games rather, and basically he wanted to get some well-deserved rest, and basically also removing speculation that perhaps his removal, wanting to be removed from that room, had anything to do perhaps with Oscar Pistorius' behavior, and that he said that he enjoyed the time that he spent with Oscar Pistorius at the games. So certainly we'll wait to see what impact, if at all, it does have on the trial as it resumes today. We know that the State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel will continue his cross-examination of Van Zyl this morning.
Of course, Van Zyl's bias was pulled into question yesterday towards an athlete that is represented for 7 years now. But before that, acoustics expert Ivan Lynn also concluded his testimony.
Well, that's right, Yerban. Well, basically, Ivan Lynn's introduction to this case, you'll certainly see the defence wanting to bring somebody to deal with the evidence that was led by some of the state witnesses, Oscar Pistorius' neighbours, that they heard the screams of a woman coming from Oscar Pistorius' home. Now, you know the defence has always maintained that in actual fact that the voice that was coming from Oscar Pistorius' home was not that of Riva Steenkamp screaming out for help, but they're saying that it was Oscar Pistorius, that Oscar Pistorius screams like a woman when he is in distress, and they claim that Oscar Pistorius screamed, it was a cry for help after he had realized that he had actually shot and killed Riva Steenkamp and not the intruder whom he initially thought. So basically, that was the basis of his introduction to this case, to deal with those aspects. Basically, Lynn saying that there's no way that these state witnesses who claim to have heard those sounds, that they could have heard the sounds from as far as more than 170 meters from where the homes of these neighbors were. So that was the introduction, basically, of Ivan Lynn to this case and what he was set out to do.
And today, Piet Van Zyl will conclude his testimony. How does the rest of the day and the week then look?
Well, Eamon Piet Van Zyl will be cross-examined by State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel. You would recall that yesterday court had to adjourn quite early because the State Prosecutor said that he did not know, or he had no idea that Piet Van Zyl would take the stand, so he needed more time to prepare for cross-examination. So certainly today we're expecting Gerrie Nel to try and poke holes in this glorious, this all-perfect relationship that he painted between Oscar Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp. You would know previously inside court, various state witnesses have come forward to paint a picture of a fractured relationship. So certainly what Gerrie Nel would want to do today is to question him further on Oscar Pistorius' character and try and get to the bottom of perhaps this glorious image that Piet Van Zyl, who has a relationship spanning about a decade with Oscar Pistorius, to try and poke some holes in to the testimony that he gave yesterday. And certainly, Yerban, I must say, it's also been, quite surprising that the defence has brought a character witness so late into the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. And certainly, some of the experts who we have spoken to say that it would be a last-ditch attempt by the defence to try and deal with perhaps the damages that the state witnesses that were brought, who spoke about an Oscar Pistorius who has, violent outrages and, basically does not treat women well. So that would be the defence's latest strategy as we see it, as we head towards the last leg of the Oscar Pistorius murder trial.
Thank you very much, Griselda. Thank you for that update, Griselda Lewis, on this very platform and all the other SABC digital platforms all of the time. She updates us on what's happening at courtside, really, with the Oscar Pistorius trial. It continues, and we'll keep you updated on all our platforms how things develop there. Now we move on. A report titled "Demanding the Impossible: Platinum Mining Profits and Wage Demands in Context" was launched by Wits University Society for Work and Development Institute swap early last month. The report shed light on the question whether platinum producers of Amplats, Implats and Lonmin could afford the wage demands by striking AMCO workers of 12,500 rand. It found that the three platinum producers did not fully disclose their financial status. It found that three mines made enormous profits between 2000 and 2008. During this period, Labour received only a very thin slice of the pie. Meanwhile, shareholders and executives took home huge sums in dividends. We are joined in studio by Gilad Isaacs, one of the researchers who was involved in the compilation of the report. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Excellent morning. Thanks for having me.
Very, very interesting subject matter. Just give us a little insight as to your findings and where and how this report has now been received.
Our report wanted to take a longer-term review because, as you said, the focus was on the last year or the last 2 years, in which they argued that the profitability was low and the wages were a large share. And that's true, but that's only true if you look at a narrow frame. So we did three main things. The first was to look at how the gains were divided up. And as you said, we noticed that shareholders received a comparatively large share of the pie, and Labour a much smaller share. The national average for Labour's share is 59%. On average, they received only 38% over the 14-year period as a whole. We then went and calculated what the impact of both the wage offers and demands were. And then the third thing was that we went and contrasted those offers and demands with the distributions which have been paid out over these 14 years.
So, the context of it is that 12,500 rand, the wage demand, is affordable and sustainable.
I think that the question of affordability is a very complicated one. It requires to look forward. It requires to know what demand is, what the price is, and those are questions which we did not tackle. What we did was say, what light can the last 14 years shed? And what we found was that in the context of the last 14 years, with less distributions to shareholders, those wages could have been met. But the future may not be exactly like what the last 14 years were like.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit different. Now, if the three mines could afford to increase salaries at the rate that we're talking about, and it almost looks sustainable, why would they then go through 5 months and lose around 30 billion rand?
I mean, I think that there's no doubt that the AMCU demands were a significant ones, and ones that the companies were not wanting to pay, and which would have significantly altered the financial situation of the companies. So they were obviously holding out for a better deal, which they have eventually negotiated, and recently we have actually gone and calculated what the settlement means on both sides. And I mean, there's from their side, I think the settlement is a significant departure from the AMCU demands, and therefore represents for them a much better deal than what AMCU was asking for.
Do you think the pennies dropped with these mines, and they realise now that the only way forward is to find a way to create a better life, and that's maybe not only a salary but also creating living space around mines and improving the lives of entire communities around the mines that they run?
I would like to hope so, but I have hesitations on that. I mean, I don't know these companies as people and as great depth, but they obviously exist to maximise their returns, and the extent to which labour stability will assist that, they will pursue such measures. These companies are large international conglomerates. and do not have a special allegiance to the South African developmental strategies. And so their key concern is going to be maximizing value for their shareholders.
You also look at the cost of AMCU wage demands against this massive dividends paid to shareholders. What was the finding there?
The finding was that if you look at the last 14 years, that for Implats and for Amplats, the AMCU demands came to about a fifth of the payouts made to shareholders. For Lonmin, it was much higher, at about 50%. We also looked at the dividends paid out in excess of the national average to try and say, well, if they had paid out in line with the national average, could the excess have been used to pay like wages? And we found that only about a third of the excess would have been necessary in the case of Amplats, for example.
Now, nationalisation has been a major talking point during this election year here in South Africa. The findings are that huge profits or huge dividends are going offshore. Do you think that the argument around nationalisation by parties like the EFF will find more and more traction unless these huge dividends that go offshore is being dealt with at a governmental level?
I think that there's no doubt that we need to relook at how it is that everyone benefits, how the companies make a sustainable return, how Labour gets a fair slice, and how the state derives some benefit. Nationalisation is one route. I think it's quite a fraught route. I think, as you say, it will gain public debate and engagement, but I think there are also other routes. For example, something which is called a resource renter tax, where the super profits during these boom periods are then taxed at a higher rate. That's one of the many fiscal mechanisms through which the state can ensure it is receiving a larger share of the gains.
What are the lessons that we should take from the strike and how we conduct labour relations in South Africa?
I think that one of the key things which I think is clear when you look at the last five months is the poison of inequality. How inequality has driven the duration, the intensity of the strike. How in Anglo, for example, the CEO earns 185 times higher than the lowest paid worker. And this level of inequality, which exists across our economy, is in the long run unsustainable. And the strike has brought that into sharp relief.
That's very interesting. Gilad Asiks, thank you for joining us. We live in the most unequal society on the planet, and unless we deal with that, this problem will continually come to bite us.
Absolutely.
That is the message.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Gilad.
Thanks for having me.
A report titled Demanding the Impossible, Platinum Mining Profits and Wage Demands in Context. Get your hands on it. It makes for very interesting reading, and it should be an object lesson for all of those in business and within labour in South Africa as to how do we take this process forward, not at the expense of our future and our economy. Let's now take a look at what you've been talking about on social media. Of course, at SABC Newsroom. That's where you can interact with us. We love your pictures, your comments, your opinions, especially. Ludwig Mtati says, Barry Roo should never have called a character witness yesterday. Gerry Null is going to tear into Oscar today. Yes, that's what we expect. Greg Atkins says, morning all, salivating, waiting to see if Oscar's manager says Oscar can walk on water and demonstrate it. Oscar trial and do a faith heal. Everyone's having a bit of a dip today at Oscar. So Mguala says, Sissy Posh, she is at. Still feel sorry for Oscar Pistorius. He's lost much, even before the judgment. What about the young lady that lost her life, my dear? That is the question. Now, picture of Gerry Null in court. Milady, he's ready in that right position. The state will continue its cross-examination of Oscar Pistorius manager Piet van Sail today. Lovely picture. Thank you for that, Snindelo. Now, there you have it. Oscar Pistorius, sustainability in the mining sector. Passionate about that. We should be in South Africa. Let's now take a look at the front pages of the world. We have to keep an eye on the world. The Washington Post has the latest reaction to the killing of 3 Israeli teens, as well as the Independent in the United Kingdom. Israelis mourn the deaths of the teenagers who were kidnapped 2 weeks ago as the Air Force targeted dozens of locations in the Gaza Strip yesterday. Shock at Wimbledon as both Rafael Nadal and Maria Sharapova made a dramatic exit. All of your World Cup action on the UK sports pages. And then finally, heartbreak for the United States as they were kicked out of the World Cup by Belgium late last night. Now, on that World Cup note, one of the most memorable moments of the 2010 World Cup happened today, exactly 4 years ago. On the 2nd of July 2010, the Ghanaian soccer team's dreams of becoming the first African team to reach the semi-finals of the FIFA World Cup came to an abrupt end after they were defeated by Uruguay on penalties. But what most people will remember was that handball on the goal line by everyone's villain in the piece, Luis Suarez, that prevented Ghana's Dominic Adia from scoring in the last minute. Let's take a look back at that.
Match. Mensa will be one of those up for it. It's going to get the flick in. And Muslera. Oh, cleared on the line. And cleared on the line. The referee's assistant is flagging. What a dramatic thing. There's a red card coming out as well. Well, there had to be drama right at the end here. And the red card is shown. Suarez is sent off. Well, you couldn't have a more dramatic finish to a World Cup match than this one. Asamoah Gyan.
Yeah, it was a dark day for Africa. Some people say on social media that Africa will never win a World Cup while Sepp Blatter is in charge. That's not mine. That's the view of some of our viewers. What do you think? Tell us at SABC Newsroom and we'll put it up if it's any good and makes sense. We'll be back after a short break.
Across the globe, the continent and the entire country, every second there's always a breaking story. SABC News is your reliable eye, ear and information system in bringing you events as they happen. Our cutting-edge and hard-hitting journalism leaves no stone unturned, giving you the whole picture every time. Join us every day on SABC3 and know what is happening around you. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Yes, this is Newsroom on SABC News. Welcome back. The National Arts Festival celebrates its 40th year this year and coincides with 20 years of freedom and democracy here in South Africa. These are two themes that are reflected in the program. The 2014 Grahamstown Art Festival, which runs from the 3rd to the 13th of July. The official opening of the festival is this evening. Let's cross to our reporter Janine Lee in Port Elizabeth, who's standing by with a little bit more detail. Good morning, Janine.
Hi, good morning, Evan.
Official opening tonight. How important is this arts festival to the arts community?
Yeah, well, all roads now lead to Grahamstown, Evan. It's a great success story for the Eastern Cape and also for South Africa. As you said, the official opening tonight, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa will officially open the festival. And then from tomorrow, the festinos will start pouring into Grahamstown. It's 11 days where people can let their hair down. They can wear any clothes they want to. They can have a drink in the morning if they want to. It's just a time to let go, relax and enjoy. But there's a serious note to it because it's an important platform for the artists throughout South Africa. Many of them make this pilgrimage every year to Grahamstown, and for many artists in South Africa, it's been the kickstarter or the launching pad for their careers. So it's extremely important to them. Just to go back to 1974, when the festival started, there were just 64 productions, and that has grown in leaps and bounds. In fact, this year there are going to be over 3,000 performances. So there's a lot on offer. There's dance, there's music, there's drama, there's theatre, there's the ballet. This year we've got Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. That's going to be a popular one on the main program. We've got Hugh Masekela here. He's going to give one performance only, so that is going to be jam-packed. But a great place for people to come and just enjoy the arts, and important for Grahamstown and the region as a whole. And the main festival, the main program and the fringe program always used to be sort of second cousin to the main, but the productions that are on the fringe make it equally as important.
Tell us about the Young Artist Awards. That's quite an interesting addition, isn't it?
Yes, the festival, Eben's been going for 40 years, but the Standard Bank Young Artist Awards have been going for 30 years. And it's always a keenly anticipated announcement. Some wonderful talent this year in the awards. We've got Donna Kukama, we've got Kyle Shepherd, just to name a few. Previous winners, Mary Sabanda, many people in the arts world will know her. Her work is renowned. She was exhibiting in Paris just last year. So also a great place for the young artists to get going.
And affordability, Janine, how affordable is this festival for the man in the street now? Can the poor attend it?
Yes, even the poor can attend it, but everyone can attend. I mean, look, the petrol price has just gone up, so it's a big issue. But many people make provision, they put it in their budget so they can make this trip down to Grahamstown. And you must understand, a lot of locals from East London, Port Elizabeth and the surrounding areas go. So the festival relies a lot on the locals. When I say locals, I mean people from the Eastern Cape, but a lot of people that also come from Johannesburg, Cape Town and all the surrounding areas. But speaking about affordability, yes, the prices on the main and the fringe program range between 80 to 150 Rand. So it might make a little bit of a dent in your pocket if you haven't budgeted. But for those people who come and maybe their pockets aren't bulging with money, there is something on offer. The first couple of days of the festival, there are what we call, we won't say free performances, but they invite people to come, various artists say, come to our first performance and pay what you think it was worth, or just make a donation or make a contribution. So there's that on offer for the first day or two. And then every evening at the monument, there's the Sundowners concert by our sister radio station, SAFM. And what you can do, you can come and sit there on the steps at the monument. You can have a glass of red wine or a sherry just to keep the cold away. And you can get little snippets of what is going to be on offer. So it's sort of like a mini version of the big event that's going to play out over the next 11 days. So definitely something on offer for everyone.
I hope it's not too cold there the next couple of days, Janine, but I'm sure that you guys in the Eastern Cape will use the red wines and the sherries liberally. Thank you very much, Janine.
Even just before you go, I did have a look at the weather. The next 2 days, and I'm sure that the viewers might be interested, it's going to be pretty warm. But come Saturday and Sunday and into the following week, the temperatures are going to be freezing. But that's what people in Grahamstown love. They love it that it's cold. They can put their beanies on and their scarves on and, have a sherry at 10 o'clock in the morning, because that's what it's about. So maybe we'll see you.
Not this year, Janine. Unfortunately, somebody's got to man the ship. It seems as if I'm always working and everyone else is always having a little bit of fun. But no, uncomplaining, we will soldier on, as it were. Well, the court, mind you, is just underway. I think it's a minute or two early today. So let's, there we go. Gerard is back at it. Of course, Piet van Zyl is expected on the stand this morning. Let's go straight to the North Gauteng High Court.
I cannot recall that I had to arrange a visa for Ms. Taylor. If I put to you that you received an email from the accused sending you a copy of Samantha Taylor's passport, and that happened on the 12th of September 2012. Would that be strange?
I can honestly not recall that email that I received.
You see, I don't want to read out your email address. So I'd rather send you a document just to check if you can identify your email address. And I will just indicate with an arrow where I would want you to look. I know you're reading everything now, but there's an arrow indicating your email address, am I right?
That's correct.
And I see you've already turned the page. You're welcome to. You see there's a scanned-in copy of a passport.
That's correct, sir.
And a message to you. You see that?
I see that there's a message
to you,
to me,
and on reading it, it's from Oz.
That is correct.
And who's Oz?
That is Mr. Pistorius' name that we sometimes used to call him.
So, can you still remember having received that email?
I must admit I cannot recall receiving this email, but I obviously did receive this email.
Now, why would you receive an email? Let me just hand it in. Milady, this will be XXX. There will be more than one, Milady. May I beg leave to hand this in as XXX1, Milady. Now, let us just read out what the accused, in terms of what we have in front of us, what the message was. Will you read it up?
Which message, sir?
The one underneath the scanned copy of the passport.
With page 2.
Page 2 of the
Hi, Piet. Here is Sam's passport. Please keep it on file. Think we're sorting shit out. Oz.
Now let's deal with sorting shit out. What is that?
If I have to read this as it is here and interpret it, I would assume it would be a love quarrel or difference of opinion that they might have had.
But then, if he writes you something like that, he must think you know what's going on. Otherwise, why would he say that?
I must admit I did not interfere in any of Mr. Pistorius or any of my other clients' personal lives, and I did not ask what he specifically referred to here in this case.
No, that, you see, you're not answering it. I'm not saying you asked. I'm not saying you interfered. I said, for somebody to write that to you, that person must think you know what's going on. Because he's saying, please keep it on file. Think we're sorting shit out. So he must think you know what's going on, otherwise he won't write that.
If I can honestly say, I did not know what was going on, and if there was something wrong, something specifically wrong, sir.
So what did you do with the passport? He now sent you this. What was the purpose of it?
I kept this passport on file for a later occasion when Miss Taylor accompanied Mr. Pistorius for a television production that was happening on the Seychelles later that year. That she accompanied him, Mr. Pistorius, to this trip.
So you arranged that?
No, I didn't arrange it. We were approached by a television production company that wanted Mr. Pistorius to be a guest on this show, and they offered a trip to the Seychelles for Mr. Pistorius and a person that he could take along with.
Mr. Van Zyl, did you arrange the tickets or anything? That's my question.
I then had to give all the information through to the television production company, and as far as I could recall, they then arranged the flight.
So what you're saying is, as a fact, The Mauritius trip happened after September.
It was
After
the
Seychelles.
It was the
It
Seychelles
happened
trip.
after September 2012.
As far as I can recall, I don't have the specific dates of that trip. But it was definitely after the season was finished.
Okay. Now, let's deal with something different. Remember yesterday we had this discussion about the accused being moved from the room during the Olympics?
That is correct.
And I asked you if you read anything about that, remember?
Yes, you did ask me if I read anything about it.
And you said no.
As I said, I can't recall. The only communication I had at that stage was from Coach Ampilo, who's also Mr. Pistorius' personal coach and was also one of the team coaches of Team South Africa, who phoned me to inform me that there was an issue with one of the athletes and Mr. Pistorius, but it has been taken care of and sorted, as it was called, by the team management.
You took no further steps?
As far as I can recall, no.
Now, I'm going to send you across an article by Mr. David O'Sullivan. Ask you if you ever read this.